Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Slow Burn. This is a bit of a special episode. I haven't done something like this in the past, but the wife and I just got back from a trip with a couple friend of ours from church, and we went up to Washington, D.C., drove around a bit of Virginia, Maryland, and Delaware. As you can see from my hat, spent a lot of time in Rehoboth Beach. My first time on a Delaware beach, that I recall at least. And my third time in Washington, D.C., I believe. But I was not old enough to appreciate history at the time I went. I may have been old enough, but I didn't appreciate history. The last time I was there, I was roughly a sophomore in high school and was just getting into drinking and being a scoundrel, so didn't care too much about the scenery there when I was younger, but I did get to go and appreciate it a lot this time, and I want to talk about that, and I want to show you some of it, because I took some B-roll shots, if you will, of different things we got to do. Just different sceneries and different shots that I thought were aesthetically pleasing that I wanted to share. Just because I do still enjoy filming stuff, but I don't always have an outlet for it. But before we get into all that, let's get into what we're smoking today. Smoking out of my Nording Silver Classic Straight Billiard. I'm not sure what the colorway is officially called on this bad boy, but it's like a, what's the word for that? Ebony, dark walnut. I don't know what the stain is, but it's very dark, and the flame grain is very beautiful on it. And today I'm smoking, finally again, some Boswell's Northwoods. Look at this bad boy that they sent me in the mail. 5 ounces of that premium leaf. Let me tell you right now, nothing's topped it so far. Not a single thing. Nightcap's the only thing that's come close. But it's not even remotely the same, so, I mean, they're both English blends, but other than that, by name only are they similar. Classification, I guess. But, man, I went through the other 2 ounces so fast I had to order 5 ounces this time, and I am so happy it was back here when I got back in town. While I was in D.C., drinking a Diet Coke, or as my sister calls them, fridge cigs. I think we started calling them that at Talladega last year when we were there for the race. Going again this year, I'm really excited, but I'm getting sidetracked. I got to visit a couple tobacconists, if you will, historic tobacconists while I was in D.C. I went to, right next to the White House, W. Curtis Draper. I must say, that was an interesting experience. Off the bat, it's just way more cigar focused than pipe focused, I would say. I've been into buying pipes, obviously. I have PAD, P-A-D, baby. Pipe acquisition disease. But I don't want many from the same country of origin. I have a Canada, a couple Italian, Danish, Irish. What else do I have? Missouri. And I think that's it. So I wanted to, if I'm going to acquire more pipes, I want it to be of a different country of origin. So I was looking for a nice Chacombe or something like that. I get a French pipe, and I did find a very beautiful Chacombe, but upon further inspection, it had a crack in the band of the shaft. And I already told y'all, if I break it and crack it, it's a problem. If I buy it cracked, it's a big problem. So it had a nice little emerald green finish on top and on the side. It was beautiful, but the crack, I just couldn't see past it. So I was not about to even ask for a discount. I would never use it because I would just be thinking about the crack in it all the time. So couldn't cave, and I really thought I was gonna enjoy that pipe shop more than I did, if I'm being honest. The staff was just very laissez-faire. It wasn't a sweet southern welcome like I'm used to walking into pipe brick and mortar shops. You couldn't even smoke in there. So I think that was as of the week prior to us getting there. So just certain things like that I was surprised about. And then I did also get to visit Georgetown Tobacco. I did not know about Georgetown Tobacco when I arrived in DC. We were walking around through Georgetown to go to the Georgetown Cupcakes, and then we were going to go, so one of the nights we were planning to go sightseeing, it started pouring down rain. So me and my wife, I made my poor wife walk a mile in the rain. She spilled some of my coffee down her white skirt. I spilled some of it on my beater. Man, it was a journey. And so we were like, man, we can't go sightseeing. Hold on, let me let the wind do its thing. We couldn't do sightseeing. And we were in Rehoboth a couple days prior. And with the couple that we were staying with, we had watched all the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. So we were like, let's go see the new one again, because it was very good. And now seeing it with the fresh context of the previous three in mind, I was even more excited. But as soon as we got down to Georgetown, it stopped raining. So it's like, let's continue our exploration. And in the midst of that exploration, we found Georgetown Tobacco. It was closed when we saw it, but we went back the next day before we went to the airport. And that place was amazing. The man who was working, I wish I could remember his name. He was just a jolly old man. It was so great talking to him. I wish I could have talked to him longer. He kept getting phone calls because he was working on, I think he had a HVAC issue going on in his home, and the people were there servicing it and having some issues getting in and out or something along those lines. And so he kept having to take a call. So I had to bounce out, but we were talking about a whole bunch of, I showed him my Savinelli 904 KS and my Peterson Aaron X105. And we were talking about the new Peterson P-Lips, which is just ridiculous. I don't know how you're going to get a pipe cleaner in a P-lip. I didn't realize, I had seen the P-lips on smoking pipes, like promotion, but I still thought the shape on top was just different, and the hole was still in the middle of the mouthpiece. Well, it's not. The P-lip has the hole on top, so the smoke travels up. I guess that's to help with tongue bite, but we were both talking, if you just smoke with a proper slow cadence, you don't really get tongue bite. I have rarely got it. Unless I'm just power smoking, which when I first started, that was a little more common. Or I will admit, on some days like this where the wind is just going crazy, which it's slowed down a bit, but yes, earlier today, it was just insane. I smoked a whole bowl in like 35 minutes because the wind was just smoking it for me. And this thing was getting hot. It was bumming me out. I was trying to cover it. It was getting hot, so I was using my lighter to cover it and like trying to keep the hole covered so it wasn't, man, I could see getting a little bit of tongue bite from that because it's just hot smoke. You know, it's hard to keep the smoke cool when you're doing that, or when you're dealing with that. But yeah, the peel-up thing is weird to me. I'm not a fan. I'm glad I saw one in person, so I know never to buy one, because I have no idea how a pipe cleaner. I just feel like it's gonna lead to more saliva buildup and moisture within the shaft and all that. Gross. No, thank you. I'll pass. But to each his own. I'm sure these aren't for everybody. Something about this. The straight shapes, they get me. They get me. But it was a good trip. Overall, it was a good trip. Very eye-opening. I hadn't been up north in a while. Especially to a place like BC. Which I've been getting into history a lot recently. Trying to find good historians to read. I'm going to read a lot of them. A lot of the history people, just word of mouth. I want to get Jefferson Davis's Fall of the Confederacy. I want to read some of Robert E. Lee's published works, George Washington, letters that are published and things of that nature. Even though I've heard there's a lot of presumption in it, I still want to read The American Story by Tim and David Burton. Which my dad graciously ordered for me because that book is on back order to no end. Another thing that happened while in Georgetown, I found Malcolm Guite's Galahad and the Grail. I've not been able to find it anywhere. So I am ecstatic to read that book. I've shared briefly that I'm in the process of writing a book. When I show the concept and share some of the mini writings to some people, they've compared it to Kill a Mockingbird, which is good because it's kind of, I organized a lot of the thoughts in a classroom, but similar to like a courtroom drama with the same type of scenes in mind and whatnot. But anyway, so I'm reading this book currently called The Assault on Truth by Jeffrey Musaf Mason, or Mason, I don't know. But it's about Sigmund Freud's suppression of the seduction theory. And this might be the saddest book I've ever read in my whole life. It is like extremely depressing. So I'm trying to power through it. And just, to be honest, get done with it. Because I hate reading about the stuff that you read about in this book, to be honest. It is just disgusting and sad, the lows in which humanity can stoop to. So I'm almost done. I got like 2 or 3 chapters left. But yeah, looking forward to getting done with that. I really want to read Galahad and the Grail next, but because I'm starting these drafts more seriously, I really need just a refresher on To Kill a Mockingbird's writing style, because I really want to write it in the third person, similar writing style. Another similarity is that it takes place in a fake town. Obviously that's, Maycomb, Alabama, fake town. Mine takes place in El Dorado, Texas. Fake town. At least it's fake. I don't know every town in Texas, but it's fake in the location I'm putting it. So didn't want to deal with real school districts and mascots and having to learn the ins and outs of a real school district. So I would rather just be able to insert my own setting in that sense. So doing that, and then after that I'll be graced with the opportunity to read Galahad and the Grail. Oh, and I just skimmed through it. I didn't read much, but I was looking at a lot of just the print and the illustrations, and it is a gorgeous book. It's absolutely gorgeous. It just feels timeless. And it was in the classic section at Barnes & Noble. And I had asked if they had it, because every bookstore I go to I ask about it because I can't get it online. And they were like, I don't know, I've never heard of that. And then they looked it up, they're like, oh, we do have it. And then I showed it to them, and they said, yeah, we didn't even know we had this book. So, shout out to Barnes & Noble for having that book in Georgetown. There's one left. There's one left in Georgetown, so go get it. But I'm excited to read it. I know the second one comes out in November, so I'm wanting to read this one before that one comes out, which I should. I'm about to be a whole nother book ahead of schedule for my one book a month this year. Because, well, I guess I am already technically ahead of schedule because I finished Screw Tape Letters already, and that was August. So I'm about to be done with this. That's when I'll be a book ahead. So, I'll knock out, To Kill a Mockingbird's a fairly short read, so I'll knock that one out pretty fast. Then it'll be on to Galahad, hopefully October into November, so I can just pick up the next one, The Coming of Arthur. I believe he's doing 4 volumes. To my knowledge, he's doing 4 volumes. And I believe, I don't know this for sure, but I believe there's 3 books within each volume. So 12-volume epic. Arthurian epic. So yes, very excited. That alone made it a very successful trip. But again, very eye-opening trip. Very eye-opening. I did not realize, and obviously I'm in the city, so when I go to like downtown Dallas or even some areas of Frisco or McKinney, and some of the historic downtowns especially, Denton, you run into this a little bit more, but man, I just didn't realize how different here is from there. I did not realize the widespread celebration of sin. And obviously you hear about it. I would like to think it's the vocal minority, but man, when you just see it that much in a single walk, it's sad. I think a couple years ago when I was a new Christian, I would have gotten mad. I would have been like, oh, these people don't understand, they're ignorant and blah, 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 blah. But then my pride really came to its end, and I recognized that the only reason I see things differently is because the Lord opened my eyes. So a lot of these people's eyes haven't been opened to the truth. And it's sad watching people celebrate their own destruction. Because it's one thing to live in your own sin, which I do every day. Everyone does every day. Don't let anyone tell you different. But it's another thing to embed it as part of your identity. And that's the part that was ultimately making me sad. Because people can do whatever they want. I'm not going to be the one to tell them not to. I mean, here's one thing that bothers me a bit. Just a bit. Because there's nothing you can do about it. But I find it very interesting how, especially with something like, I believe in the Bible, right? So I believe what the Bible says to be true. People oftentimes know what the Bible says about certain things. And so when you live as if you believe the Bible, people take your actions as hate or intolerance or bigotry, whatever you want to call it. And it's not that. Like, I got my own stuff I'm dealing with and wrestling with. I don't really think that it's my place to judge someone who doesn't believe what I believe or hold them to the standard of what I believe if they don't believe it. Like, if you think you're better off the way you're living, then by all means, continue the way you're living. I felt I was not better off the way I was living BC, truthfully. Every single night, the moment, I couldn't be alone because I just constantly had to be surrounded by people. I constantly had to have friends over, be on the phone with someone, texting someone, watching something. I had to be distracted at all points of life because being sober while not being a follower of Christ, what's the point? I really still to this day don't see the point. I was just talking to another buddy, another brother in Christ about this morning. Like, let's let the sirens go by. If I was not a believer, I would not be sober, ever. And I wasn't. I don't get the point in sobriety if you don't have Christ. To be honest, that's just my perspective. I'm a broken man as well, so many other people may have, different perspectives on that. That's fine. I just don't. I couldn't take the when I thought reality was as mundane before I was a believer. I didn't see the point in not spicing it up a little, if you will. Now, being a believer, I don't want to cloud the experience in any way. I think earlier in my walk, and you can watch my episode of ICU Live on this channel. It's episode 4 called Double Life. I talk a lot more in depth about my story, but I used to think, even as early on in Christianity, that things like weed and alcohol would only enhance the Christian life in a way. But that's because I was trying to use a BC standard and apply it or rework it to my AD standard. And they just don't mesh. And again, that's not to tell anyone that you have to live by the standard of the Bible, but was my main point earlier. It's funny how people take my beliefs as an attack, like a personal attack. If I believe the Bible and I believe the Bible and you don't believe the Bible, then the fact that I'm even in your presence believing the Bible and not celebrating whatever it is you're doing, that's somehow a personal attack. But you're not celebrating what I'm doing, and you don't believe what I believe, and I don't do that to you. So I don't know, I just feel there's a double standard a bit within certain scopes of the day-to-day as a Christian versus the secularized culture, to be honest. But again, that's just some of my observations since doing this. It's just been interesting to me, I think. I don't take any offense to it, truly. I just find it backwards a bit. And it's like, I've done a lot of research into the tinfoil hat subjects. Name one, I've probably researched it. And crap, well, I lost the connection I was going to make with that. So it probably wasn't important to say anyway. But yes, overall, great trip to DC. Learned a lot. Really learned to appreciate home even more, to be honest. I love vacations. I love getting away, especially with my wife. It's amazing getting to go live and see the world together. Those are experiences we'll share forever. Memories. Man, there's something about getting home to your own bed. It's just glorious. Sitting back on my porch. I know the thumbnail may have been a bit misleading, me with Albert Einstein. But as a fellow pipe smoker, I had to show some love. While I was in DC, I don't think Lincoln was a pipe smoker to my knowledge. I don't know which founding fathers were into all that, if any. Yeah, the only historical figure I can think of off the top of my head that was a pipe smoker is Einstein. I mean, unless you're including Tolkien and Lewis, and I think Chesterton was a cigar smoker. He's another one I want to read. They had two of his books at one of the, they had Orthodoxy and, oh gosh, I can't remember what the other one is. One of his other books. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they had it at this little hole-in-the-wall bookstore on Rehoboth Beach. But I'm very picky about which edition of books I get. Especially like if it's a classic timeless read like Orthodoxy. I don't want some cheap plastic looking paperback version of it. I just don't. I want to live in that book. I want to have like a hardcover that's unique looking. It doesn't have to be a first edition by any means, but I want it to have character. And not like, man, it is a travesty to look at some of the modern prints of C.S. Lewis's books. They make me, I couldn't imagine wanting to read something that looked that way, to be honest. It is like, ugh. Oh man, I think of like Mere Christianity or Screwtape Letters off the top of my head. I went and sought out older prints. I think the ones I got are from the late 70s, early 80s. Because there's something classic about them. I just cannot stand some of these more modern book covers. I digress. What made me think of that though was the trip in DC where I got to visit the Museum of the Bible. Now, I told you I had been to DC a couple times before this. I never knew in my whole life there was a Museum of the Bible in DC. How does that fly under the radar? One of the times I went to DC was with a church group, a choir trip. We didn't go visit the Museum of the Bible. I feel like that's something you would do, being there with a church group, to be honest. Maybe it wasn't open then. I don't know when it opened actually, so maybe it wasn't around then, in like 2015, but dude, it was cool. I'm getting to see some of the older prints, the text, the way it's been maintained and transmitted and translated and preserved through all this time. It was really cool to experience. was really cool to see, and it was emotional at times. You know, it's beautiful. It really is beautiful when you think about it. Like, zoom out and think about it. This one man changed the world forever. And he created the world and decided to be a part of the creation itself. Like, what? It's amazing. I got to have a wonderful conversation. For those of you watching, it's Friday, or at least after Friday. It would be after Friday the 14th, August 14th. If you're watching this, it's either that day or after that day. And on August 15th, I get to drop an interview with a guy named Pat Ron on the ICU Live podcast. This would be episode 5, entitled Fear. I think I'm splitting it into 2 episodes. We'll find out when I go through to edit it in the morning. But man, it was such a good conversation, and getting to hear some of his story and his background, and then his perspective on some of the Bible and the stories in the Bible and the history. And I don't know, it's just, you never know who believes what. And then when you get to talking to them, it's always like, man, even if I thought we were on completely opposing sides, which I didn't think that with him, but there's a lot of people I talk to that I'm like, oh, we're probably on opposing sides of thought. You realize how much in common you have with these people. And that's why the powers that be don't want us talking and dealing with stuff civilly, right? Because if we all were to just talk it out, we'd recognize and not misrepresent one another. We would recognize very quickly that, oh, we're not the problem. We have problems, but we're not the problem. The problem in the world, and this is one thing we said, if you're arguing black and white, left and right, you probably have no idea what's going on in the world. Respectfully. This isn't a political issue. This isn't a racial issue. And I do quotation marks with that because we're all one race, the human race. We might be different colors on the outside, but we all breathe the same air and remotely live the same experiences. There's nothing unique to our experience. There's nothing you've been through that someone alive hasn't already been through. What's the phrase? Nothing new under the sun. And it's so good to be reminded of that sometimes, because our problem is our allegiance to sin and our allegiance to ourselves. The amount of times in my life I didn't do the right thing, or found a way to excuse myself from doing the right thing in justification of serving myself. Oh my gosh. And I only say that in hindsight because, again, I justified it to myself. I don't have to do that because it wouldn't help me. It would actually hurt me. I would justify it and rearrange it in my head to just the perfect perspective to where I could free my hands of it, where I wouldn't feel guilt about not doing the right thing, or I wouldn't feel responsibility to do the right thing. And when I recognize that, I'm like, man, that makes me the problem. That exact mindset's what makes me the problem. So, if I were willing to put that problem aside and do what Christ says, it's like, what could go wrong? Even when things in my eyes go wrong, they're not going wrong, they're going exactly according to plan. But when I try to nudge my way in there, I don't know. Hopefully you know what I'm saying. I've had a lot of revelations this trip where I was just like, oh my gosh. I'm in more need of the gospel than I ever realized it. Every single day. I was not armed to be in this area that I was in. I was not armed to be witnessing the division, within our own lands, within our own homes. I go out there and I'm so appalled by what I see. And then I come home and I realize it's the same thing, just it's a little bit more veiled here. Same heart posture though. Same allegiance to sin, even if it's different sins. And that's what I pray that the world recognizes. I hope there's some great revival and awakening. I pray that that is on the way before the last day. So people I know who don't believe will one day believe. That's another big prayer of mine. I want us all in the kingdom. But I want them to want to be in the kingdom. No one can force you to want to be there. A lot of people think it's below them. And if it is, okay. That's what saddened. As I was realizing there's so many people who think this kingdom on earth is greater than the kingdom in heaven. And I'm blessed the fact that my eyes were open to the play that was being run on me, to the deception.
Share the wealth, man.
What?
I said share the wealth.
What kind of wealth?
Have a good.
You too. White van, white kidnapper van. Just pulled up to my sidewalk and said, "Share the wealth, man." I don't know if you could hear that. He must have thought I was smoking weed. I feel like a lot of people think that that's what I'm doing out here. I mean, look at me. I can't really blame them, but I just judge myself. My neighbor, or one of these neighbors on this street, I don't know which one it is, but I smell weed from time to time, so he must have thought that's what was going down. It's not. We're smoking some Boswell's Northwoods, baby. I know you don't want none of that. Anyway, I got distracted. I really don't have much else to say. I just wanted to share with you a little recap of my trip. It was a great trip. Had such a good time with our friends. Ate so much good food. And bad food. Just bad food. It tasted good. It is so bad for me. And now I'm having withdrawals. But that's a topic for another day. Before I close it out, I do want to show you some footage from the trip, so please enjoy.
This world is hard enough for me, and now it even hurts to see.
that concludes this episode of Slow Burn. I know it wasn't a lot of footage, but I did just want to give a little sneak peek of the settings we were getting to visit and places we were getting to see. So thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.